Hello and welcome to the last team news of the 2022-23 season. My name is Joe and as ever I'm joined by Fantasy Football Scout editor Neale to look at the latest press conference, team news developments, see who's injured, who's fit to play, who's going to be rotated, who's not going to be rotated, and also who's got a strop on and they won't be playing this weekend. We'll reveal that player as well, and also the all-important Nathan Ferguson news. Before we move on, though, we're going to get straight in to the team news. But just to welcome all those joining us in the live chat: Tony, Dennis, Jason, Zoe, Lucas, Shaz, Jammer, FPL Hero, J-Lag, Winnie the Pooh. Great appearance from Winnie the Pooh there.
Always good to hear from him.
It's actually brilliant. So let's hope Piglet and Eeyore and all the gang come as well. So thanks so much for joining us. People saying there, thanks so much for all the team news. Thanks a lot for your kind words there. I saw a comment here from Dennis was saying, I hate to say it, but I think Watkins is going to have a masterclass against Brighton and put them to the sword on Sunday. Well, I might be bringing Watkins in. Brighton are already 6th, so I don't care. It'd be nice if Brighton won that, but it honestly doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah, I think these are the kind of fixtures where you wouldn't mind your own team getting a bit of a shell again.
Yeah, I think it was. Didn't you point out last time when Newcastle and Brighton were vying for the championship title? I think Brighton played Villa and got beat by them.
Yeah, Grealish scored. Yeah,
so there we go. So that I didn't mind that. So we ended up in the Premier League. Both did. Let's move on. First of all, Arsenal against Wolves. Now, big news at Arsenal. I penciled them in. I think many people had for a final day sort of punt on some of their players, but some of their players may not make it. I would probably say they might be in the questionable column at the team news roundup. So yeah, what's the latest?
They definitely are. Yes, Saka and Trossard, who probably were the two punts that a lot of people were considering from Arsenal. They are flagged as doubts now by FPL. Now, what Arteta said was they've both had little issues. With Saka, it's been going on for a few weeks, he said, so it's obviously a recurring thing. So whether he risks them or not on this dead rubber remains to be seen. Same with Trossard. Nelson, of course, was ill last week, so he was grouped in with that lot, I think, for that reason. We do know that Elneny, Tomiyasu, Saliba, Zinchenko and Martinelli are definitely out. Now there's those 3 yellow flags with Saka, Trossard and Nelson.
Okay, so yeah, that's a grim reading for those who definitely want someone who's going to be playing. We don't know what's going to happen there, so it looks like it's going to be plenty of rotation there. What shape are Wolves in facing them? Because they also doesn't really mean much to them either, this fixture.
No, it doesn't. No, they are comfortably mid-table. We didn't get much in the way of team news that I've seen so far. This is one of the press conferences I've not actually seen all the way through yet. The footage from, and the quotes I've seen reported all concerned Lopetegui's future and then financial fair play. So I've not heard anything team news wise. There wasn't anything that we're concerned about anyway. The last we heard, there was only the long term ones out, which is Chiquinho and Kalajic as well. There's a few lines from last week when a lot of the Wolves old guard had their farewell appearances, and I think Moutinho and Johnny opted out of it. I think they didn't want to be considered for selection. That was what the Lopetegui was implying.
Oh.
So there's so much week-to-week uncertainty there. No one would go anywhere near Wolves in FPL terms right now.
No, definitely. Let's move on to Aston Villa against Brighton. These are 2 teams we might be interested in. Brighton, as was pointing out just earlier, got nothing to play for. Villa do, though. A chance to get into Europe for the first time in a decade, I believe.
2010-11 it was.
So this is huge for them. They've got a conference place up for grabs. Spurs and Brentford are their big rivals for that place, so they really want that. They're really going to want to beat Brighton there. But obviously, now, as we saw against City, Brighton, they're quite good. So home side first. What's the latest from Villa, and how prepared are they for this sort of must-win clash for them?
Yeah, one of I think probably 6 or so clubs that have got something to play for on the final day. So you're not expecting much rotation. However, there is a bit of injury news to bring you. Alex Moreno, who some people would have had on the benches or in their starting 11s, he's had hamstring surgery this week after coming off last weekend, and he's now going to be out for 2 to 3 months. Might even miss the start of next season as well. There's a bit touch and go with that. He's out. Coutinho's still out, and Jed Steer's still out, the backup goalie. But Diego Carlos has trained and Callum Chambers has trained. They've both recovered from injury and illness, respectively.
Okay, for those who are, like to take a risk or are just very drunk, Luca Dean could be a final
Nicotine.
day punt there. And Brighton, fixture congestion mad, but they've been celebrating this week after securing Europa League place. What does Zerbi got had to say about how they're set up?
Well, maybe he deserves on the lash this afternoon because he chose to do his press conference straight after the Man City game. So this was Wednesday night. So this is pretty useless information, really. In fact, non-information because there wasn't any team news update within it. So he filmed this Gameweek 38 presser, if you can call it that, after full time. It was in embargo till today, and I've just watched it. There was nothing team news wise on it. The last we heard, March, Lallana, Moda, Lamptey, Sarmiento, those were the ones that were out. Mm-hmm. And then Robert Sanchez wasn't being considered for selection.
No, he's thrown a strop after being replaced by former Sunderland stopper Jason Steele, who is better than him at getting the play out from the back.
Yeah, and more praise for Steele in this week's presser from De Zerbi. I think maybe making a bit of a point of doing that when Sanchez is sat at home scowling.
Yeah, not sure we're going to see Sanchez in a Brighton shirt again.
No.
I will say that a few weeks back we were saying here some quotes from De Zerbi about Matoma mentioning about players not being able to play 3 times in a week. I was expecting Matoma to get benched at some point.
Me too.
And he hasn't been yet. So this is, I would say, if any players are going to be rotated for this one, it would not surprise me to see Matoma on the bench. You never know. He might be okay. But I just think it might be his turn. And McAllister's turn last week, so I would assume, being McAllister's last game, he would start. But then he might be... I don't know what you think about this, whether he might think, well, he's not going to be here next season, so...
Yeah, there is that train of thought, isn't there? But then you could say the same about Caicedo, and then he played on Wednesday against Man City as well. So I don't think there's particular bad blood there with De Zerbi and McAllister.
No, there isn't, I think.
So I don't think there's going to be the same ostracism that there was with Sanchez and Trossard previously. I haven't done a pretty lineup yet, but it was in my initial thoughts because he was benched on Wednesday, as was Dunk. There was no problem with Dunk.
Yeah.
I think it's just some management going on, and we thought that, as you said there, we thought that with Matoma in Gameweek 37 that he'd missed maybe the Southampton game, and he powered on through. But obviously an element of doubt this weekend.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to Brentford Man City. This is another crunch match. So Man City don't have anything to play for, apart from, I know Pep Guardiola, I'm not sure if he said the word rhythm, but he often says that when he's about to enter a good game, a must-win game of being the Champions League final and the FA Cup final. And they play Brentford, who do have something to play for. The Europa Conference place, which they will really want as well. I don't know. I don't think Brentford have ever been in Europe. Not in my lifetime, anyway.
No, I'm pretty sure they haven't. They are, as you were in terms of injury news. It's Tony and suspension, of course, as well, because Tony's out for 8 months. So the same players on the sidelines, and that's Keane Lewis-Potter, Norgard, and Pontus Jansson.
Yeah.
Cox, the backup goalkeeper, is away on international duty as well. There's some England under-20s games going on. So as you were on the injury front for Brentford.
Okay, and for Man City, now this is crucial. There's probably going to be rotation. They were sort of half strong against Brighton. Few of the big names were back. Haaland's, KDB. I mentioned that word rhythm. Did he say the word rhythm? And what do you think the rotation will be for this?
He did mention rhythm, yes. So I've got a few quotes for you here. He was talking about the injuries first. So we've seen 4 players flagged in midweek, and that was Grealish, Laporte, Akanji, and Diaz. Now, injured is definitely an inverted comma here because it could be repetitive hand injuries from lifting too many beer bottles. Who knows? I think there was an implication from Pep that anything serious, party related injuries, and he said nobody's definitely out for this one. He said some of them are still half and half, and we will see tomorrow.
Half cut.
Cocktails maybe used to each one of it. But yeah, he's mentioned that nobody's definitely out, and he's hoping to get everyone back. He did say that we need to keep our rhythm as best as possible for the long weeks ahead before the finals. So there's an FA Cup next weekend, and then there's a Champions League final the week after that. And then he says he wants to see how they feel in terms of condition, but they're going to play the game as real as possible. And if they're available, we take a team to win the game. So we did a bit of a study on this recently on the site and as to what Pep has done in previous years when the title's been sewn up. And it's pretty much panned out how we thought so far. Once the title's in the bag, which did come a game early this week,
Yeah.
we thought that might not happen till midweek. He rotates and gives fringe players a chance like he did against Chelsea and then partly against Brighton as well. But on Gameweek 38, he tends to go strong, particularly when there's a European tie or a FA Cup final immediately afterward, because he likes rhythm. He doesn't want his players going 2 or 3 weeks without a game into a very important match like the FA Cup final is and the Champions League beyond that. So I think he's pointing towards us in the direction of a strong team at Brentford. There'll of course be the usual selection demos. Even at the best of times, we're not sure what lineup he's going to name exactly. But I think it's going to be a lot more like the recognisable one that we've seen before the title was won.
So obviously Haaland, that's a big issue. Not just people own him, but he's for the captaincy as well. So if we know Haaland's in the starting lineup, he probably should get the armband. But do you think Haaland will start from these quotes?
I do. Yeah, I think so. I think I've based on what we've heard from Pep. And as Luke said before, Pep doesn't often lie. He doesn't tell us stuff. There's loads of times when he just doesn't say anything of note, but he doesn't often lie outright.
Yeah.
And I think when he's talking about rhythm and talking about getting players back, I think he'll go strong for this, and I think that will include Haaland.
Yeah.
So it's funny that we thought that Haaland might be a minute's risk at some point in the run in, and possibly in 38. Now we're looking at other alternative captains like Salah, which we'll talk about in a second, who might be a rotation risk, and Haaland might be the safer option. So kind of called full circle.
I might, as I was saying earlier in the week on a video, I'm going to be out for the pre-team news stuff on Sunday, but I might take a risk for Haaland. Just go for that and just risk him showing up. Okay. And just before we move on, I just a shout out to Dennis in the live chat, who has annoyed me, but because of me, not him, because he's come up with a better title for this show. I've called it Rotation Chaos because it is. But he said, like Grace Jones, Pep Guardiola's Slave to the Rhythm. So Slaves to the Rhythm would have been a much better title. So thanks for that, Dennis.
Very
That's
good.
Annoyed me because I'm annoyed with myself. You're better than me at titles, Dennis. Chelsea against Newcastle. Okay, there's bound to be team news for Chelsea. They've been on the beach, or they want to be on the beach for probably a couple of months now. And there's lots of injuries. Anyone going to be back? I mean, what Chelsea are we going to see for this?
Yeah, a possibility of seeing Mount, but it's still tight according to Lampard. Now, Lampard is one of 3 managers who didn't do a bespoke presser for Gameweek 38. We've already mentioned one of them. That was De Zerbi. And Lampard was another. So the injury update we got from him was straight after last night, and it only concerned 2 players. And it was Reece James and Mason Mount, as I've just mentioned. Mount's got a chance. Reece James hasn't. So he was back in training actually on Wednesday, Reece James, but he went straight back in an awareness of his hamstring. That's what Lampard called it. So they're going to scan him again. So that's him definitely out of this one. There's a cluster of other players who were major doubts for the final day. Chilwell, Kante, Cucurella, Brozier, I think it's definitely out. Badiashile, Bettinelli, Kovacic, Sterling, of course, missed out last night as well with a hamstring problem. Hadn't trained all week, so we won't. I'm not sure if we got updates on them. There still might be a chance of embargoed sections, but they're all, I think, 25% flagged or around about that. And Mount is the only one who Lampard has mentioned is possibly recovering for it.
Some people might need Kepa to play. There could be some goalkeeper issues elsewhere. Likely to be a Kepa game. Is he back now in favour?
Well, he played both the Gameweek 37 matches, and which is kind of what we thought would happen. Lampard did previously say he was going to give Mendy a game, which was in Gameweek 36.
Okay,
but he's not exactly covered himself in glory Kepa of late, and
no.
I wouldn't bank on it.
No, okay.
He definitely needed, but Yeah, hopefully that was just a one-off for Mendy.
Okay, and I said people might need Kepa because they might have Kepa and Pope in goal, and
Yeah.
there is big news around Pope at Newcastle. What's the latest?
Well, yeah, I can tell you for certain that Pope isn't going to play. He's had surgery, I think, on his fingers. I think it's repeated dislocations he's had. So he's had surgery this week, and that rules him out of Gameweek 38. Also out are Joe Linton and the backup right back Mankio. So they're out as well as Richie, Kraft, and Lascelles. Joe Willock, we think, still out as well. He's been out for a few games now, and I doubt he's going to be back. So a lot of players either orange flagged or red flagged. I think that's about 7. And as Howe said today, I don't think we've got anyone left to rest. He does actually. He's got a few. He's got a few options in attack. But so yeah, Dubravka between the sticks. I wouldn't be surprised if Matt Target comes in after playing second fiddle for much of the season. And then I wouldn't be surprised if one of Isak or Wilson were benched actually, and because he wants to give a bit of game time to St Maximin and Gordon. Champions League's in the bag, so I wouldn't count on starts from them either.
Okay, rightio. Bad news if you got them. Okay, we'll move on. Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. So Nottingham Forest have achieved what they wanted. They've secured Premier League status. So this is a meaningless clash for them. Also meaningless for Crystal Palace. But a lot of interest in Crystal Palace players. They've been on this good run. We've had double game weeks. Haven't involved Palace. I think a lot of people, myself included, are looking at some of the Palace options and thinking, right, I'm going to finally get one in, even if it's the last game. But what is the latest from Palace, particularly some of those key assets we might be targeting?
Yeah, Zaha's out, so we thought he was going to recover for this, and it's now been confirmed that he won't. Jeffrey Schlupp's out as well, still that personal issue. That's kept him out the last 2 games. He's not going to be available here. I think the only person they're getting back is Vicente Guaita, who's been on the bench recently, serving behind Sam Johnson. So they're still without Tompkins, still without Milivojevic, we think, and still definitely without Nathan Ferguson, of course.
I can see it
Maybe
on
our
the tweet.
last ever mention of him.
I'm copied in for that. Nathan Ferguson, surprise, a long-term injury.
And Palace are one of the clubs who haven't got a lot to play for, but who have eschewed rotation. Hodgson said a couple of weeks ago that he's not going to experiment with his team. He's not going to, I think, consider sentimentality for departing players. So he's been true to his word since then. He's played a full strength team, which is why I think many people are interested in Palace assets this weekend.
Okay, so Eze, Elise, Edwards, Ayew, they look pretty as certain as we can be for the starts.
As certain as we can be, yeah. As confident as we can be, and they're certainly in my predicted lineup, yeah.
Meanwhile, Nottingham Forest, meaningless clash for them. They may also have had a drink or two this week to celebrate. What sort of Forest are going to turn up?
Yeah, you wonder, don't you? Because they'd shown a lot of fight and so much energy, physical and mental expended in the last few weeks. So you wonder whether they are going to be just really phoning it in this weekend. They're going to be without Keylor Navas anyway, who was a bit of a hero from last week. He pulled the groin in stoppage time, and now he's definitely out of this one.
Okay.
Felipe and Danilo, 2 of the more successful signings there, doubtful as well. Lingard missed out last week as a precaution. And then you had the pre-existing ones like Williams, McKenna, Wood, Henderson, Bianconi, Richards, Colback, Scarpa.
Yeah, okay.
So a lot.
So, I mean, not that anyone's going to get the Forest goalkeeper in, but who, just out of interest, who will play in goal for Forest?
Hennessy. It'll be Wayne Hennessy coming in.
Right, yeah.
Okay. But against his old club, of course, against Palace.
Of course. Let's hope he's not as controversial this time around.
Yes.
Everton against Bournemouth. Another team with something to play for. Their survival in the Premier League. I think it's 30 years, 33 years, 40 years on the trot. They've been in the top flight, Everton. They've certainly...
I think, is it not 80 or something? Is it not?
It could be, but yeah, sorry. I mean, I can't... Yeah. I mean, I'm obviously not 80, but I cannot remember Everton ever not being in the top flight.
Yeah.
And I'm somewhere between 30 and 80.
I think they're the longest serving... I might be wrong. I think they're the longest serving team in the top flight. Well, obviously, this predates Premier League.
Right, yeah.
I might be wrong, though, but I vaguely recall that from my rudimentary football history.
Yeah, so that's... okay, so this is absolute must-win for them. Meanwhile, for Bournemouth, they've achieved what they wanted. There'd possibly be some rotation there. Everton, not so. But some injuries at Everton. Do tell all.
Yeah, two massive ones really, especially up top. Calvert-Lewin's out, so he picked up a problem last week and hasn't recovered. Same with Nathan Patterson as well, so they're really short of fullbacks. Both of those got hamstring problems. Coleman's still out, Vinagre too, Godfrey and Andros Townsend as well. Mikalenko is the one they could get back. He's better according to Dyson. They're going to see how he responds to training. So that's important if you're thinking about McNeil as well, because McNeil had to play at left back last weekend and then left wing back in the absence of any of those options that we normally have. So if Mikalenko was fit, then McNeil plays further up the flank where he can do a lot more damage. I will correct myself on Everton. They're the second longest serving team in the top flight after Arsenal.
Ah,
There you go.
okay. Yes. Also, more in the live chat. Sir Moomin, recently, I didn't know he'd been knighted, but Everton have been in the top flight since 1951, if I recall correctly. He said. So I'm not going to verify that now. So
Yeah.
I trust him. He's been knighted. So Bournemouth, meanwhile, there may be some options here amongst rotated players, but yeah, Bournemouth. What's the latest there?
They have got a trio of players who they're hoping to be fit, and one of them should be, and that's Philip Billen, who missed out last weekend with a back problem.
Yeah.
Rothwell and Traore, I think O'Neill was less sure about there, but still hopeful. Definitely out there are Frederick Stanislas, Tavernier, and Semenyo.
Okay.
Excuse me.
The reason I mentioned them, Traore there, he has been on the assists imminent table, on our goals and assists imminent table, for months. Because he's been out the side, been injured, but he was posting great stats before he was out of the side. So if he is rotated in and is fit to play and does get a game, he is assist imminent. Finally, we might actually get this assist from him.
He was on a lot of set players, I think, wasn't he? When he
Yeah.
first came at Bournemouth, it's probably why he's got those
Yeah.
chance creation stats.
So if he is there, and obviously Philip Billing's in a much more attacking role now, so Philip Billing is another good option, I think, for a cheeky differential. Leeds against Tottenham. This is intriguing. Got two sides with something to play for. Leeds have got the Premier League survival. Tottenham, a Europa Conference place. I don't know. Tottenham fans probably aren't interested, but there's a bit of cash still in the Europa Conference, so I think they'll be looking to win that. And Harry Kane and Son, well, Harry Kane in particular is he's a bit of a Gameweek 38 legend. Lots and lots of goals and points there. Different Spurs side now than previous years, but
Yeah.
how are Leeds as they battle for Premier League survival?
Well, much like Everton, they've got problems up front. Rodrigo sounds more positive. He's been struggling with a foot problem, but at least he finished the game last week and he has trained since. So
Okay.
Allardyce sounded fairly confident on him. Bamford's the main worry, I think, a hamstring problem, and they're going to give him as long as they possibly can to prove his fitness. But obviously, a bit of a concern. Apart from that, Sinisterra, Adams, Dallas still out. Firpo is back from suspension, though.
Okay, and as for Spurs as well, same as it was with some of the long-term injuries, or anyone back?
Yeah, a few changes. They're hoping to get Højbjerg back. He's been training. He missed out last weekend. They've lost two centre halves. Romero, who was absent last weekend again, he hasn't recovered. And Eric Dyer has undergone groin surgery in midweek, so he's now out of this one as well.
Rightio. Okay. Moving on, we got another team with something to play for. Leicester. Premier League survival is. I mean, it's hard to believe they won the Premier League a few seasons back, and now they're fighting to stay in it. And they take on West Ham, who have a European final of their own to prepare for. So you're not sure with them. Could be some rotation. Could be the search for rhythm. Leicester, how are they set up for, as they like Leeds, to survive in the Premier League?
They've got a few players back, so that's one positive. So Dewsbury Hall, Ricardo Pereira, and Johnny Evans. Actually, Johnny Evans only had cramp last weekend, but they've all been passed fit anyway by Dean Smith. Soyuncu hasn't recovered in time. He'll miss this one apart, as well as Vestergaard and James Justin. And Ndidi is a doubt as well. He came off against Newcastle on Monday with a hamstring problem. Hasn't trained since, so he's obviously a concern. Again, no word on Danny Ward, who's had a dislocated finger, so we're not sure if he's going to make the bench or not.
Okay, and for West Ham as well, Could be rotation, but may not be. They may want to go strong for this one. How are West Ham for this?
Yeah, I wonder if he will pull out a pretty strong team because they've had a week to recover from the last game, and then I think they've got 9 days until the Conference League final.
Yeah.
So that's quite some distance between matches. Injury wise, pretty good. Scamacker's out still; he's been out for a long time, and Emerson Palmieri's had a knock to the knee, so they're going to assess him. Apart from that, though, I think it's pretty much a clean bill of health because Aguerd's back, and Flynn Downs was only ill last week, so they both should be available.
And just to point out, with West Ham, they are a team. Obviously, they're playing a team with something to play for. When a team does that, that sometimes managers, more honourable managers, will field a strong side because they want to keep the credibility of the match, credibility of the Premier League going. David Moyes, obviously a very experienced manager. I'm not sure whether he has a particular track record of that, but I know lots of managers will. And so I think there might not be so much rotation here, but that's just speculation. Manchester United against Fulham. Nothing to play for here. Manchester United got what they want, and Fulham have got what they want. Both have had OKC. I mean, I know Manchester United fans aren't overly happy. They haven't won it, but it's not the glory days. But I think they've had a pretty successful season, considering where they've come from. So yeah, how are they set up for this? And also, we don't yet have Fulham news, but I think you might have got something shortly.
Yeah, with United, this was the third manager who did the press conference before today. So that was last night after the Chelsea game, and it was embargoed till this afternoon. So as you might expect, very, very little new in terms of team news. We already knew that Anthony's a big doubt because he was stretchered off last night with an ankle injury, and he's obviously a big concern. Luke Shaw was the other one. He came off at half time, I think, with a slight back problem, and nothing really of worth from Ten Hag in the embargo section. He just said, in this moment, I can't see if he's available or not to play on Sunday. So apart from those two, it's the pre-existing ones, Sabitzer, Van der Beek, and Lissandro Martinez are all out. Now, of course, they sealed qualification last night to the Champions League, so there is a small concern, I think, if you've got Man United players, that there might be some rotation this weekend. Ten Hag doesn't do it that much, or hasn't done it that much previously. He has rested some players here and there. But there's less than 72 hours between games. There's an FA Cup final next weekend. If he did rest his key players, then they will already have gone 9 days without a game. It's not like they'll be, rusty for that long.
Yeah.
So I think there is a little bit of concern. I think the obvious ones would be maybe Varane, because he tends not to push him too much. So he may get rested, and good old Harry Maguire may come in. And then, why would he risk Shaw? I think if Shaw's not 100%, you may have Malacia coming in. And then there's a question of what happens further forward with Rashford and Fernandes. And Rashford at least missed last weekend and only came off the bench yesterday, so he might be spared. Fernandes generally plays to every possible game he can. But you do wonder whether he's now a rare rotation risk, because he never normally is.
Okay, interesting stuff there. And of course, Fulham. As I was putting the screens together, I didn't have any news from Fulham yet, but I understand you might have had something through.
Well, I've seen the transcription from Marco Silva's presser on the Fulham website, and there's nothing on injury news. We weren't expecting anything anyway. All we knew about was Andreas Pereira and Tim Ream being out for the season, and Dan James had been back in training as well. So that was the only things we were aware of. So I will watch that later on when it drops on West London Sport website, and then I'll report anything on the Fantasy Football Scout site.
I think Mitrovic will be, but I'm tempted myself actually against possibly rotated Manchester United.
Yeah,
could be a good option.
I think so.
Yeah. Let's move on to the final game, Southampton against Liverpool. Nothing to play for here. Liverpool have not got what they wanted, but at least they're in Europe. Southampton have definitely not got what they wanted, and they're out of the top flight. So this screams rotation from both sides. Let's go with the home side first, Southampton. What's the latest there?
So it's as you were pretty much, with the addition of Paul Onuachu, who's dealt with a back problem. So they've got Adams, Larios, Salisu, Perro, and Bella Kocha out. Livramento is not ready to play from the start, but he'll get minutes from the bench. So that's pretty much as you were. Liverpool, just segue straight onto them. Now they are out of the Champions League qualification race because of points picked up from Newcastle and Man United in midweek. And this is probably the most, well, interesting quote of the day, I think, from Klopp. It was one of the first ones this morning. I'll start with injury news, and he's still without Thiago, Ramsey, and Bajcetic as well. Keita, I'm not sure if he's going to be fit enough. Darwin's back in training though, so he could come into contention. Two fresh worries: Andrew Robertson with his groin, and Konate with an illness. They've scanned Robertson, and it seems fine, but Klopp still said that they're going to have to see how they can deal with that. And then he said he won't take any risks, so don't be surprised if he's rotated. He then went on to say about rotation. I think it makes sense that we make changes to get fresh players on the pitch and players who want to show something. So, what are we going to say? Are we going to say wholesale changes? Are we going to say 5 or 6?
He has made wholesale changes before.
He has. In the final day of the 2019-20 season, which was against Newcastle, actually, when there was a dead rubber in Gameweek 38, nothing to play for, no games at the end of the season, so it wasn't a cup final to prepare for. He went mad with the rotation, and he rested his entire front three. So that was Salah, Mane, and Firmino. Rested Trent, and made a few other changes as well. So there might be two separate things. Of course, that was the year of the COVID season, and there was a lot of games packed together. They've had a week to recover. But Klopp has come out today and said he's going to make changes and put in some fresh legs. So there would be some concern there, I think, even for your Salahs and your Trents.
I think it's the gentle sound of the captaincy being removed from Salah in some teams, and perhaps put elsewhere. Haaland, he's quite good, or maybe Harry Kane if they got him. Looks like a good fixture, but lots of teams, lots to play for, and obviously some dead rubbers there with rotation. It's the team news roundup. So fit to play, we've got a few of the Leicester players there: Dewsbury Hall, Evans, Pereira, Livramento. Sounds like he's going to get minutes, not going to start, but get minutes. Southampton, which should be interesting for those playing Gaffer and any of the Championship games for next season. Højbjerg could be back. Looks like could be back. Spurs. Rodrigo for Leeds looks fine. Guita for Crystal Palace should be back. Darwin. Fit to play for Liverpool, so sounds like he might get a start. Traore and Billing at Bournemouth, they could be cheeky punts there, and Carlos for Aston Villa is fine. Questionable though, I've just got the word issues here for Reece Nelson, Trossard and Saka. It just says issues, so that doesn't sound 100% there. Mikalenko is questionable, but could play for this injury. Mount, it looks doubtful with fitness concerns. Same with Bamford. Kanate's ill, so we're not sure there. Robertson's got groin issues, so it could be substitute rotation. Might see Simicast there. And Shaw with his back, unlikely he'll be risk, but you never know. Major doubt and indeed out. Reece James is pretty much confirmed, I think, today.
He's out, yeah.
Yeah, that he's definitely out. Delio, Nottingham Forest, has got an injury as well, so he might not be risk. Meanwhile, out. Pope has had his surgery. Sionchu, before he goes off to Atletico Madrid, I think it is. He's got his hamstring issues, going to keep him out for his finale there. Romero for Spurs is out. For Calvert-Lewin is out, as well as Patterson. Nathan Ferguson, just got the sad two words, long term. And so regulars of the show will know it really is long term. Joe Ellington, his injury's going to keep him out of the Newcastle games. Anthony, he's going to be out for this clash. Moreno's hamstring problems, believe he's had surgery as well. Navas is not going to be fit enough to be in goal for Nottingham Forest. And I've simply got the word for Sanchez Strop. He's got a bad case of having a strop on, so he will not be selected. So there we go. There's your team, the final roundup of the season. Thanks for all your insight today and across the season, Neale. I know it's been invaluable for people. I know lots of the comments have been very kind in there, saying that listening to you has actually given them 20 to 30 points perhaps in the season, because they've been aware of those. So very, very kind comments there. Thanks everyone who's joined us. Always a busy live chat. Always lots of good comments there, and I know it's obviously well watched and listened to as you prepare for the weekend. It's Sunday, 4:30 is the matches, so 3:00 deadline on Sunday. So there may be one or two tidbits of team news. So be careful who you follow there, and when you take the risk of listening to people there. I will not be there. I'll be watching some comedians instead, and you'll be watching some comedians on Twitter.
Yeah, self-styled comedians.
Thanks a lot, Neil. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you next season.
Yeah, if I could just before we sign off, Joe, just thank everybody as well personally in the chat. I've just left a message there, but really appreciate all the views and the likes and the comments. I think more than anything else, as well as the views, because they do mean a lot. I think when you see people posting positive stuff and then saying you've helped them as well, it does make it all the worthwhile. So yeah, thank you again for another season's worth of listening to me waffle on.
Excellent. See you next season.
Bye bye.